Okay, so let's say that you have gone through the EDTO training and you are ready to fly. First things first, check the technical log of the aircraft. Make sure there is no MEL or CDL items that hampers your EDTO flight. Dear guests, welcome back to the channel. Let us talk about EDTO operations or extended diversion twin operations. Normally, when a flight is planned from point A to B, in between the departure and destination, there are a number of diversion airports that are located within 60 minutes of flying time. What this means is if an emergency happens at say point C, then the aircraft will have to divert to point D that is located within 60 minutes of diversion time. Now this is all well and good if the whole world is made up of land. But since planet Earth is made out of 70% water, we have to come up with a solution to make our trek shorter. For example, instead of flying close to land from Singapore to India, we can come up with a better way to cut short our flying time. To do this, authorities have come up with a grandfather clause because your grandfather is always right. So instead of flying up to 60 minutes away from your diversion airport, you can fly up to 3 hours away from a suitable diversion airport on a single engine. Depending on your airline, the maximum diversion time can be 90, 120, 150 or 180 minutes. And so, what is the criteria to carry out a EDTO flight? Number 1, the aircraft must carry enough fuel to reach a diversion airport if an engine or pressurization fail at any point when you fly. There will be 3 scenarios that will determine our fuel uplift. The first scenario will be one engine failing and drifting down to an altitude and heading to a diversion at single engine speed. The second scenario will be a pressurization system failing. The aircraft has to divert to 10,000 feet and diverting on both engines. The third scenario is both the engine and pressurization fail. So the aircraft have to perform an emergency descent and divert at 10,000 feet using only one engine. So EDTO critical fuel profile is calculated by you descending at VMO or MMO or any predetermined speed to your diversion flight level. Diversion cruise at a certain speed. Normal descent to 1500 feet above an airport holding for 15 minutes, 1 IFR approach and go around, 2nd VFR approach and landing. Also fuel consumption for the length of the diversion and other fuel reserve for any aircraft defects, MEL or CDL, aircraft performance and fuel penalty for anti-ice system. So what are the considerations when planning for a diversion airport? The airport has to be adequate and the adequate airport has to be suitable. An airport is adequate if it is within airport operating hours with ATC and weather reports. The airport must also have rescue and firefighting services in which the minimum category is 4, aircraft and passenger handling services and 1 approach aid, sufficient landing distance, and do note that the aircraft can exceed the pavement classification number PCN number in case of emergency. So when the weather dispatch criteria is fulfilled, both the ceiling and visibility minima, the adequate airport then can become a suitable airport. The weather dispatch criteria will depend on the EASA or FAA requirement, and for planning purposes, the weather forecast must be at or above this weather restriction plus minus 1 hour of the aircraft estimated landing time. Now let's talk about 3 points: the entry, middle and the end. Entry point is when the aircraft starts traveling more than 60 minutes flying time in single engine from a suitable airport, and the middle point, known as the equitime point, is the point where you, the pilot, will take the same amount of time to fly to 2 diversion airports. Also, let's talk about the critical point where fuel on board is needed to continue and the fuel needed for diversion are the same. If you have a failure before the critical point, then you have to divert. If you have a failure after, then you continue on. The exit point will be when an aircraft is within 60 minutes flying time from a suitable airport. Okay, so let's say that you have gone through the EDTO training and you are ready to fly. First things first, check the technical log of the aircraft. Make sure there is no MEL or CDL items that hampers your EDTO flight. Important items to check are your generators. Make sure your APU generator is working. Also check that the fuel cross feed is working. During FMGS programming, enter the waypoints of your EDTO segment. Click data, pilot waypoints and key in the coordinates. Store it and enter the next one. Double check again the points with your flight plan. Once you start the engines, check again the status page because technically MEL items no longer apply when the aircraft moves using its own power. However, do use your discretion regarding this. Before you depart, your dispatch weather minima is your weather minima at EDTO diversion airfields. So once you are flying, before entering the EDTO segment, obtain the weather forecast of the diversion airports. This time, use the actual airport minima and not the dispatch minima. If the forecast is below the airport minima, then choose another suitable airport or reroute. Question: what do you do when weather falls below minima after you enter EDTO segment? Well, do comment below if you know the answer. Normally, during the EDTO segment, you will be talking to air traffic control through HF and not VHF. What is the emergency frequency? Do comment below. In this case, when you are on HF, it would be best to establish cell call communications. Now, we move on to fuel checks. If the fuel on board is less than what is required at critical point, do we divert? The answer is no, we do not divert. So the next question is, what are some of the scenarios that do require diversion? Number 1, aircraft engine failure. Number 2, aircraft fire. Number 3, medical emergency. And number 4, aircraft decompression. So once there is a need to divert, contact ATC and inform them. If unable, fly off the airway depending on where you are. Perform the RBSM contingency procedure. Do check out my videos on RBSM. Descend below flight level 290 and divert using the appropriate speed strategy. Do check out my videos on A320 engine failure during cruise. Your main concerns will be: number 1, is there enough fuel? For example, what if fuel is only available through gravity fuel feeding? Number 2, your electrical source. How many generators are available? Number 3, is the problem contained? For example, is the fire outbreak in the cabin or cargo compartment resolved?